Welcome to Makers International, a podcast of makers, connecting with makers from all around the world. Here's your hosts, Jamie Page, Chris Cute, and now, Richard Morley.
Hello. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, good times, whatever time it is, wherever you are listening. I'm Rick Morley, joined with me, as always, Mr. Chris Cute.
How are you?
You see how I kind of threw that in? Haven't done that before.
I know.
Talking of been done before, it's Jamie Page.
How you doing?
How is everyone? Honestly, because we haven't really chatted a huge amount this week between shows.
Fair to middling.
Fair to middling.
No, we haven't, but I'm still stuck on the... Did you call Jamie a harlot? I mean, been done before? I mean, what was that all about?
So sometimes people do. What has happened there? My computer just completely turned off. So I'm hoping that it is actually still working.
Mine did as well.
Literally just.
Well, I'm just saying, I have a newfound respect for Jamie. If that's what you were saying, I was like, all right, that's my man. Good for you.
Good Jamie. Good Jamie.
You're a stud, brother. Anyway,
hidden
go
behind
Richard.
bits of plasterboard and old wallpaper. You mean?
Yeah. Oh my word. Anyway, yeah. Hi, welcome to the podcast.
Honestly, so anyone that kind of has never listened to us before, you're in for a bit of a shock. But normally we sort of chat in between weeks, don't we? Like during the week, obviously. Yeah. But this week I've been crazy busy working, and the kind of chat has been a bit quiet. So I genuinely, I don't know what you guys have been up to this week.
Chris has been begging me for hangout links.
No, I haven't. I asked you once if there was something going on. If not, we would see. Jamie, don't make me. Why are people so much in a hurry to make me look like an invalid? I mean, that's just not right. I was chatting with my friend, who I thought was my friend, Jamie, and I said, Jamie, do you want to get a hangout started, get some people involved, or is there one already going on? And it translates into Jamie going, well, Chris was begging me for hangout links. I mean, that's just wrong.
So I'm going to have to, I feel obliged now to kind of jump to your defense here, Chris, because was it like 6 o'clock this evening, our time? Would have been about 1 o'clock in the hour, just after lunch for you.
Yeah.
Jamie saying, should we get together and do the giveaway?
I said we didn't have to.
But what I heard was, I'm lonely. Somebody talk to me. Anyway, should we do that? Should we do the whole giveaway thing?
That is a nice segue, though.
Let's do the giveaway thing. But we've got to do the. I feel obliged to kind of talk about our sponsors very, very briefly, because the people that never listen, not the people that are listening, that are always listening, that are in the live chat now, people like Jurassic Woodmark, Karam Hussain, and Andy Pugh, obviously, and Andy Heel from AH Bespoke, Rich Martin, the Beard 16. There's all the kind of the usual crowd, Caitlin the Cat, etc., etc. But there's also probably people that have never listened before, which kind of don't know. So
Gerald Vance, there was Steve Combs. I mean, yeah, there's a couple of people out there. So welcome, and we're sorry. Go ahead.
We apologise in advance, but also we probably need to apologise to our sponsors, because this show is in part down to them, and they are people like, I'm going to try and find a bit on the list and kind of blag it, but our good friend Chad over at Mancrafting, Glyn over at Yorkshire Grits, the wood turning abrasive paste, Pam from Highland Boxes, and also Steve Harneal, our silent partner that takes all the credit away from Jamie now, for doing our website. And if you want to find out more about our sponsors, then head on over to our website, which is makersinternationalpodcast.com/sponsors, because we kind of give away stuff every now and again, and that's what we're doing this week, because it was on Instagram, wasn't it, Jamie? We did like a giveaway thing on Instagram.
That's right.
And well, you tell us what's going on. Who's won, Jamie? That's what we want to know.
Right. So first of all, it's got to be part of
Jamie's page.
Oh God, they're really
trying to get around that, but never mind.
No.
Yeah. So the giveaway that we was doing over on the Instagrams was announced last week. We run it for a week, obviously. ended last night. So what we was giving away, what Glyn Senior from Yorkshire Grit helped us give away, was a tub of Yorkshire Grit microfine and a white Yorkshire Grit microfine hat.
Awesome.
Or baseball cap.
Nice.
So the winner of that goes to Cunningham's Custom Creations. So, which I believe is Paul Cunningham.
Yeah, he's
if I'm
down.
not mistaken.
He's in the UK. He's down Essex way, I believe, isn't it? Isn't it him that runs the Essex Maker kind of county area meetup thing that they do?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
What was his name again? What was his?
Paul Cunningham.
I don't think I've ever met him. Well, congratulations, Paul.
Yeah. So, Paul, if you're out in the chat or listening at any point, get in contact, or if not, I'll get in contact with you on Instagram. And well done.
Awesome. Good for him. That was fun, by the way. Jimmy, I had a question, though, because, and you didn't respond to it in a message I sent earlier, but because that whole contest was run on your Instagram, how much was
our Instagram?
Oh yeah, but considering I don't pay attention to it, and neither does Rich, how much was your Instagram blowing up because of everybody that was entering? I mean,
a lot.
Oh yeah, that's what I thought. Never mind.
Yeah, I had to turn notifications off on my phone because my battery was just dying.
Takes it off charge, then it goes.
We may want to rethink that giveaway program, but it's okay.
Yeah,
awesome.
Yeah, well, see, Jamie used to give me access to that, but then something happened, and now I can't.
So I think you signed into it or something. For some unknown reason, I had access to all your details on my phone.
All right, so that was probably me signing out then, rather than anything else. So probably a good thing there.
Yeah.
Nobody wants Jamie in charge of their internet stuff. Not a good idea.
Oh no.
Well, I don't want to compel Jamie to sing again, but did you guys want to do the life lessons from the week, or did you want to wait until next week to get that in there, or just kind of blog it off for all together?
That would definitely be my life lesson of the week: is don't let Jamie near like your personal login
any
details.
Your pictures or videos.
Or pictures or videos, yes, definitely.
All right, Jamie. Well, I'll let you go ahead and sing again, but find a different melody, okay? If you don't mind. Life Lessons by Jamie Page.
Life Lessons by Jamie Page.
So, social media. Yeah. This week, my largest interaction by far was when my aunt posted one of those, ask a question to solicit a response type memes. The question was, what is the furthest you have ever traveled? And yeah, there were a lot of people saying Japan, Australia, South America, and so on. I simply said the refrigerator when I had a sprained ankle when I was really hungry. And I don't mind telling you, I got tons of people that hated me for that comment, and a lot of people who actually understood it. I honestly, that was the largest interaction I've had this week. People that either hated me for saying that because that was, that's not in the vein of the question, and then people that were actually cracking up over it. And I don't know. I don't know.
That's just Facebook, though, isn't it?
Well, that just explains how we have the president we have. Anyway, okay, never mind. I don't want to bring politics into this. Here we go. All right. Anyway, so that was my life. Jamie, what about you? Did you have a little quirky, fun life experience this week?
I might have kind of taken somebody's video and edited it a little bit and made them look a fool.
Oh my God, that is my shout out for today. By the way,
I'm not going to go into it. I'm going to leave it for Chris to say. But yeah, I kind of took somebody's YouTube video and added their song that they were singing into it and changed the song. I let Chris elaborate, as like he said, it's his shout out.
He brought it into another dimension. We'll leave it at that.
I'm scared now. I can see the court cases and the headlines just stacking up. Oh my life!
But luckily they're friends, so
Whatever it is, I had nothing to do with it.
Oh my God! All right, so Richard, do you have one, or do you want to think on it? And
if people want to listen to my life lessons, they're pretty much scraping the bottom of the barrel, I think. So we'll probably want to give it a miss for this week.
let's go what we're talking about today. Go ahead.
I was going to say, do we have this week anything other than a question from Andy Pugh? Because the Facebook group was getting kind of busy with tonight's sort of topic, I think, wasn't it?
Oh my word! I have over 7 questions that people have related to the post that we made on Facebook about what today was going to be about, and it's about project funding. And the question, I mean, it's I don't know how often this comes up with people, but I'm assuming it probably comes up more often than we think about how you fund things that you want to do. And obviously, if this is client work, clients pay for the, at least the goods up front. That's kind of like how it's just basic business. If you say I can make this for you, then you need half of it up front because that's what's going to pay for the materials to make it. But on a hobbyist side, just because I want to make this and I think it's a great idea, you're going, oh, I want to do this, but I'm going to need this, and this, and this. And then you get to the point where all of a sudden you realize you start looking this stuff up online or go to your local hardware store, whatever the case may be, and you realize that what that's going to cost, it kind of gives you a little bit of sticker shock. You know what I mean? It's like, whoa, well, you know what? Maybe I'll wait until later. Or maybe I just won't do it. I don't know. I don't know what the people in the chat will say today about this, but there's a lot of different perspectives on this. And I have a funny feeling it has a lot to do with your economic ability to either not worry about it or actually have to pay attention to it. I personally pay attention to it regardless, but we had a couple questions. One was from our buddy Karam Hussein. And he was the first one to respond to this. He goes, do you ever look at the cost? And this is a good question because I've done this and I've been there with you, my man. Do you ever look at the cost of the components and think, that's okay, it's not too bad. I could do that. And then when you're online, if you order online, and then look at the delivery cost and then go, well, wait a minute. that may cost more than what it's actually freaking worth. And I think, Karam, that's a great point because I've done that a number of times. I've gone to, online sources to where you can buy exactly what you want. That's exactly what I want. I've gone to checkout and I see what they're going to charge me for the shipping. And then I realize that unless I'm buying 20 of these, that shipping cost doesn't make sense, but I only need 4, so if I'm going to buy 4 and 4 costs me $10, and then the shipping costs me $10, that's expensive, So, I mean, how do you guys approach funding projects? I mean, for yourself, these aren't obviously for client projects because clients pay for the parts that you're going to do. But for yourself, do you ever get into a quandary about whether you want to do something or not because of price?
Go on, Jamie. You dive in because this is kind of my fault that we're talking about this.
Usually it comes down to a case of if I've got it, then I'll use it. If I haven't got it, I don't make it, and I won't make it until I can afford it. But with regards to turning, you've kind of not really got an excuse as to why you can't turn. You can just obviously within reason. There's some places you can't go and just take any chunk of wood. But you can always, you can always. Oh, apart from you can have a generator, but you can always go unless the local gas station isn't open or something, and you need fuel. But you can always go out and get a log or a bunch of logs, and just continuously wet turn them. Do you know what I mean? That you can always turn, whether they're wet, whether they're dry, whether they're not. Where they're in between. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah.
Or you can mill your own lumber.
You can, but all of that equates into having the tools in order to do all of that. I mean, because it sounds easy to, hey, you could just mill your own. But you have to have the tools to be able to mill your own. But I hear what you're saying, Richard.
Yeah.
I'm interested in what you have to say.
Well, as I sort of alluded to, this is kind of my fault because, you know, just as for people listening as a background, Chris normally comes up with us on a Monday morning once he's sent me the files for me to then upload and make sure they're on SoundCloud and the various places and all the rest of it. And I then went off to work, and I'm thinking about that. I've basically forgotten all about the podcast. And generally on a Monday, Chris goes, "What are we talking about next week?" Not because he wants to know on the Monday, because basically if he doesn't tell us to start thinking about it, me and Jamie won't, and then we'll get to 25 to 10 on a Sunday the next week, and we'll be like, "So what are we talking about tonight, lads?" Trust me, it's happened before. So I came up with this idea, and I couldn't for the life of me remember where I come up with this idea from. It must have been something I was just kind of almost subconsciously thinking about, because I then have gone back through the original conversation. So what I got here was what compromises we make and so on about how we think about projects that we're looking to do. And that could well be funding, but it doesn't necessarily have to be specifically funded. I mean, Jamie, you've already talked about the turning of wet logs. So that could be a compromise that you make, not just in the kind of the monetary sense, but, you know, to buy a potentially exotic kiln dried bowl blank, for example, could have a more significant financial implication, but it also might be down to availability. Like, so Kareem was talking about, you know, you can't just nip out to get the whatever and have it delivered because it might be coming from a long way away. It costs delivery. So it was about what compromises, as well as the actual how do you stump up the cash. I mean, everyone's got a piggy bank or a jar, the swear box or whatever. And I know, Chris, you've talked in the past about you've got a little swear jar in the workshop for workshop products and stuff like that. But you know, it's also I'm also thinking about compromises, because I'm really kind of big into that shouldn't be a reason to not do it, you know, and always that shouldn't be a reason. If it's like, I can't afford that resin because resin's expensive comparatively speaking to other
you know
things.
what, a lot of people brought that an entire subject up, Richard, but especially about resin, because wood you can keep around and kick around for years, but resin you really can't. So but there was a question here that kind of relates to that, and it was from Andy, our buddy,
obviously,
Mr. Andy Pugh. He says a lot of makers use free materials. You know, like Jamie, you would say, you know, cut down the thing, you know, mill it yourself, let it dry, turn it green, whatever you want to do. It didn't cost you anything for the material. So, I mean, and that's all fine, well, and good. But thinking a little further down the line, he's saying, can this also be a false economy? Meaning that when you factor in the extra time and the wear and tear on your tools it takes to prepare. And a lot of times, Andy has a point. And I can tell you why, because at least here in the States, from my experience, now Paul Jackman will argue with me, but that's fine. But the majority of pallets I find here that are made in the States are made out of pine. And so if you take apart a pine pallet and you run it through your blades, pine is a very resinous wood. You follow me? So it doesn't matter if it's your bandsaw blade, your table saw blade, whatever. It's going to eventually gum up that cutting tool, whether it's a bandsaw blade or a table saw blade. And so you have to replace those because, or try to clean them. You can clean them. It's just a real, well, PIA. Let's put it that way.
Yeah,
it's just, is there a false economy to that, is what he's asking.
I don't particularly like working with pallet wood, and I don't particularly like turning resin either. So from that point of view, the only reason I don't work with pallet wood very often is because I'm lazy and I hate denailing it and I hate taking them apart and all this. Kat wanted a planter, I think it was, built like a stacking planter for the garden.
Or
some of the, and I think she did some Instagrammy stuff, and she wanted help building it basically. And she wanted to do it at pallet wood, probably something she saw on Pinterest. I don't honestly remember. And I was like, yeah, that's fine, absolutely, totally. I'm well up for helping you. You know, you can use any of the tools that I've got, no problem. So from a messing up blades, going through a nail, yeah, whatever, it's going to happen. I'll probably go through a nail or a screw at some point anyway.
Right.
Doesn't really matter. The fact that it could be in a pallet or is irrelevant. So, and at some point I'm going to need to change that blade anyway. So, you know, if you don't want to get your shoes dirty, don't go out in your slippers, kind of a scenario. That's kind of my mentality for it. If you want to keep it clean, keep it in the box. But the reason I don't work with it is because I hate denailing it. And I said to her, I'll put an advert out, try and find some pallets. I'll take you there. I'll help you carry them and all the rest of it. Well, you're denailing, you're dismantling them, and you're cutting them up because I hate doing that. And she did, and so she's got a thing.
Well, that brings up the conversation about free funding your own project work. Yeah, and I've done this. I've done several videos on this about how I am able to do it. But somebody who doesn't have the equipment I have would not be able to do it the way that I do it. It wouldn't become. It's like pulling those nails. Is that really worth all the time that you're putting into it to use that wood to make something? Now, if you're determined to make it, then I would say absolutely yes. It's absolutely worthwhile doing. But if you're just looking to knock her around a little bit and just have some fun, is all that really worth it? I mean, I don't know. I mean, like I said, Paul Jackman will argue with me on this all day long. But the point is, you know, you've really got to, it's up to the individual to weigh whether the worth is there or not, whether you buy or whether you go that way. And project funding, the whole point of the conversation was, do you get put off by the price of what you want to make, or do you just save up until you can do exactly what you want? And my input on this was, a lot of times what I will do is, I don't know how many of you guys do prototyping, or because especially on things I've never done before. If I've never done something before and I'm questioning my skills as to whether it can be done, rather than running the walnut through the first time, I will make it out of pine, and I will do the work in pine and get a prototype put together, learn my way through it, and then I'll feel more confident about the wood that is going to cost me some serious cash in order to build the project. So I don't normally get deterred from making it. I just happen to do it at the very cheapest level I can first before I invest. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. It does. I mean, I don't do that. I have to say, I'm very much the, you know, in for a penny, in for a pound.
Okay. Well, I mean, you know, and there's nothing wrong with that, because you're extremely careful because the more you have on the line, the more careful you become. I mean,
yeah, totally.
I get that.
So, like, just thinking off the top of my head, and these are client jobs where one of them was I did a fitted home office, and there was basically no different to fitting kitchen countertops, but one of them was a 45-degree corner deep desk. So the desk went into the corner of the room, but on the front edge of the desk, it was like a hexagon. So it came in and then it kind of cut the corner off and then went out 135 degrees, whereas the back of the room was at 90 degrees. So you had this huge triangle. So it meant joining two worktops front to back, and it meant like a lot of careful joining of the worktops. And rather than just go at that like a bullet a gate, I templated that and made sure that actually it was going to be right. And so if I'm doing something like that where it's a kind of a hit or miss affair, I'll probably template it, or I'll go really carefully. You know, just take a bit off, take a bit off, take a bit off, because that time taken actually is about the same to template something or to do
right.
What's the word you used?
Do you find yourself in a quandary? Do you find yourself in a quandary over that when you're talking about funding a project and you spent all this money on a piece of wood, metal? I mean, because this cross addresses a number of different making fields. And you know, do you find yourself being a lot more careful and perhaps a little bit more cautious about using the fine material as opposed to if you were running the lower end and making a prototype and just going, if this screws up, I don't care. I'll throw it away and I'll start again and I will learn. I mean, does that make any? I mean, I know, Richard, you said you don't do that, but I'm just wondering if you put your mind, because I'll give you a story. Quickly. I remember when I was in my early 20s and I was given my first piece of walnut, and I felt like that walnut was like a piece of gold. Excuse my French. I'll edit that later. But I felt like I was scared to cut it. I was actually, honestly, afraid to do the work I needed to do on the wood. I was afraid of that because I didn't want to mess it up. So I don't know. I mean, does that kind of fear get into anybody? I mean, when it starts when you first start out, but I mean, it gradually gradually it goes away because you end up knowing what you're doing. You don't worry about it anymore. But to begin with, does that kind of worry you?
Oh yeah, I mean, I remember when I got a Heath Knuckles blank from Heath Knuckles, obviously. It literally spent a year on my shelf because I was too scared to turn it. I didn't want to mess it up.
Right.
I mean, I had my lathe for ages, and I'd made lidded pots, God knows how many times before and after. But there was something about that hybrid blank that terrified me, that I didn't want to mess it up.
Because you knew you couldn't replace it.
Yeah. It was like gold dust. And I'll also give you another example as well. Goes back to my mum. So a few years ago, my mum she's not a qualified seamstress, but she knows her stuff, put it that way. She does it for a living. And she does some sewing outside of work as well. And she got asked to make some curtains. And the lady brought round a load of material for her to make the curtains, and she done it all, got the curtains made, no problem. Well, as my mum was putting the curtains back in the bag, the receipt for the fabric fell out. Right? Well, when my mum saw the price of how much this woman paid for the fabric, she said, if I had known it cost that much, I would have never have done it.
Right.
Yeah. A similar but bipolar response to that scenario. If I think we all suffer at some point, to some degree, that kind of imposter syndrome, and I genuinely believe, certainly with myself, when that sort of thing comes into play, I think it's partly the imposter syndrome. I don't want to mess up Heath's thing. I don't think I can do justice to this blank or to this material or this bit of wood or whatever it is. And I think the way I try, or not consciously try, but I think the way I end up dealing with that is it just sits there for ages. And then it starts taking up space. And then slowly over time, the space or real estate that material, it doesn't matter what it is. It could be some scrap brass. It could be a leftover of this. It could be a Heath blank. I've got some of Pam's blanks that she's done. You get to the point where the real estate that those objects take up becomes more valuable than the thing that's taking it up.
I hear that.
If it's not been turned into something, it's in the way. So why not turn it into something, and then you can either go, I'm really pleased with that, and at least then it can either move out of the workshop and into the house as an ornament, or to somebody else to appreciate that object. Just what I mean. It's kind of it's like rotating the tins on the supermarket shelf, kind of a deal.
No, I get you. That's why scrap wood videos or scrap whatever videos are so popular, because people always want to know what to do with their bits that they have no clue to do with. What to do with. I mean, they're very popular because people always are asking what. And I don't want to throw this away, but I have no use for it, so I need to come up with an idea on how I can use this to make something out of before I burn the bits that are left over off of this. It's kind of one of those things.
Yeah, I mean, another thing I tend to do is when things are like that, and offcuts and scraps and all those, I send stuff out to people. I give it away. I mean, I'll probably do the same again this year as last at Make Essential, and just have a bag full of scrap wood and go, well, yeah, here you go. If you can use that, you can have that because it's just in my way now, and it's better than it going than getting burnt.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
do you plan projects around materials, or do you?
No, I don't.
Do you get materials for projects? Do you see the difference?
Yeah, I normally just buy a bag of bowl blanks from Yandles and think, right, that today's going to be a bowl, that's going to be a candle holder, that's going to be a bowl. You know, maybe that's going to be glued together with them 5 over there. That's going to be a vase.
You know, I'm a little different. I kind of have an idea of something that I want to do, and then it starts out as an idea, and it doesn't start with what I have on hand. It starts out with, I would like to do this, and then I start going into, what do I need to make this? And that's when I start looking at prices and what it would cost, and then I start thinking about, well, what can I use in my shop that I already have? It doesn't start with price. It starts with the idea. I get the idea. I then look into it and say, what's this going to cost to make, or how, or am I physically able to do it? Or is this going to be a challenge? Which I love challenges. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm not shy about doing something that is perhaps beyond my skill set because I haven't done it yet. Because that's where a lot of projects come from. It's like, I haven't done this yet. I'm intrigued to do it. But then I look into what I have on hand in the shop. So it's kind of the reverse of what Jamie said. I mean, I have the idea, look at the cost, look at what I have, and then I decide whether I'll do it or not.
And so in the situation where let's say you get an idea for something and it involves working with resin. Yeah, I mean, because I've come across and had conversations with people where they want to do something with resin, but they've not got into resin because there's I don't want to say myth, I don't want to say belief. It's because resin's just not something that floats my boat. If I want something made in resin, then I'll just email Pam and see if she can do it. And, because that's what she does. She's good at it, and she's got all the stuff.
Yeah, we had that in one of our questions today. Somebody had referenced something like that, and that's a good point. It's like metalworking. If you're a woodworker and you need something made out of metal, and you don't have any metalworking tools, then who do you call? You know, and it's not Ghostbusters. It's not Ghostbusters. It's the metalworker. You know, it's like, you do it. But I do have a question from Richard Martin, who is out in our chat today, and thank you, Richard, for this question, because it's a pretty good question. He asks, a well-known maker often says that limitations need creativity, and he's right. There's something that you want to make, then you'll find a way to make it. Whether that's making it a different way, finding a way to afford the next tool, or maybe getting outside help with what you're making. For example, someone making the metal parts that you can't, or turning a round thing that you can't. Much as I'd love a huge workshop challenge with all the tools, and much as I'd love to have all the tools, I do get a lot of satisfaction from finding a solution to the problem I'm faced with when trying to make something. In other words, he's saying that he enjoys the opportunity to challenge himself, I think, is what the essence of that question was. Do you guys find that, or is because, I mean, Richard, that's a really good point, and I wanted to make sure we made that up, because if you have a will, that goes back to that whole saying. If you have a will, there's a way. If you really want to do it, there's a way to do it. Just some people don't want to put in the effort, and then I would love to embrace everybody, but that is in the essence of, if you want to do it, there's a way to do it. It just depends on how much you want to do it. And
that's the point, is how much what's the actual goal? Is it to do the thing you want to make, or is it to overcome that particular problem? And different individuals have different kind of goals, I guess. Some people it's about the end result. Some people it's about the challenge of overcoming, how to turn that thing without a lathe. And that's why we see so many cool challenges of what you can make out of an 8-foot 4x2, what you can what bowl can you turn without
Right.
a lathe,
Yeah,
and pens, and there's all these sorts of challenges that come up. But for me, I think I think we get this mix, that we get those two opposing sides, but then there's also a kind of an anti side of that as well, in so much as it's the how do I word it without sounding, I haven't quite lost my train of thought, but it's, you get this almost attitude, and it's not an attitude that people have. It's just like an assumption, really, I guess. You see, let's say, for example, I see Jamie make something out of birch ply, and I remember years ago when the podcast first started, we kind of had this thing about plywood, didn't we?
Yeah, we did.
We did.
You know, and I don't want to bring up old kind of stories or anything, but plywood was the one that dipped my head. It could be Chris made something out of walnut. I think somebody in the chat mentioned something about somebody working with walnut and getting them.
Yeah.
And I know in certain parts of the world, walnut is very prolific, very available.
Yeah.
So it's not precious because it's everywhere. I myself made a comment on a Facebook group. Somebody was asking about making something about contrasting wood. And it was the old maple and walnut. And I know maple and walnut are fairly prolific in most parts of the world. Where I am, we can find a lot of sycamore and we can find a lot of ash. That's fair. And I just said, well, instead of doing what everyone does, think outside the box. And I was thinking, you know, everyone and his dog's doing maple and walnut. What about sycamore? What about this? And somebody got like, I mean, it was completely innocent in the way I kind of in my head said it and typed it out, but they obviously took offense to it, because it was like, well, not everyone's got access to this. They might only have blah, blah, blah. And that's a bit rude in what you're saying. And I was like, well, I didn't mean it like that. It just, get this sort of tunnel vision almost. So-and-so's made it out of purple heart. Someone has done it. I've got to make it out of that as well. But I can't get that particular material. And there's this, well, I can't make it because I haven't got the exact thing that I saw somebody else do. And it's almost like it becomes a barrier rather than a stepping stone for ingenuity. Do you see what I mean?
Well, yeah. I'm gonna do a little BITCH time here, because nothing bothers me more than people. I mean, whether it's my video or somebody else's video, if you ever go back and watch the chats on some of these things, there is always somebody there that goes, you know, way to not give us any measurements or tell us how to freaking make it on our own. Great video, unsubscribed. You know, it's like, dude, nobody ever taught me or held my hand to show me how to do this either. I saw it, I came up with my own version of it, and I put it out there. Now, if you're not bright enough to watch a video and figure out the idea and make one on your own level, then go away. You know, it's like I really get ticked off about people saying that to me, because I have done a number of videos where because I never give measurement. Look, guys, I don't do plans. I don't sit down and draw out schematics and then follow them exactly on every project I make. I just don't. That's just not how I work.
You had plans for the handheld tic-tac-toe.
Yeah, I did. You gave them to me. But I normally start out with an idea in my head, and I figure it out as I go along. Now, if you are unable to do it yourself, that's not my problem. That is actually your problem. Because if you want somebody to spoon feed you all the information that it takes to do exactly what I just did, then you're on the wrong path. You are really on the wrong path to learning. You need to learn for yourself, and you don't learn until you do. Do it, and do it, and do it again until you become good at it. Those comments make me insane, because I can't take people who want to be handheld through how to make a certain thing after they've watched somebody make that certain thing, and they can't figure it out for themselves. I mean, that just drives me nuts. It's like stupid people and me do not get along. I'm sorry, we don't.
I was watching an interview actually that DeResta gave, and one of the reasons why he kind of speeds up his videos and things like that is just literally so it gives people a gist of what
How to
he's
do it.
doing.
Yeah,
Of
and how to do it.
Because if he gave people a step by step, they'd never find their own style.
Yep.
Do you know what I mean? It's basically to show you how to put that joint together, or weld that corner together, or whatever. But eventually you need to find your own style, because if you copy Jimmy exactly, you could end up getting hurt, or worst case scenario, even worse.
In that instance, it's almost a self-perpetuating fault in some or deterrent almost, because if you showed somebody, if anyone listening now showed a member of their family, a colleague at work, a friend down the gym, whoever, a finished piece of project, a finished project that they've done, they'd look at it, and your first kind of thought really is, that's cool, that's perfect. Your brain just assumes that everything is where it was exactly intended to be. Everything, the shelves were exactly that distance apart deliberately, even if they weren't. That it was supposed to be that particular size, shape, and all the rest of it. You just assume it's exactly as it was intended, and because you're not seeing the in between bit. And I kind of like, I'm gonna do the ultimate sin now, but I'm gonna liken this to scroll saw. just give me a moment.
Choking.
So when you stick your template or your image down onto the bit of plywood or whatever it is you're cutting, and you sit there and you drill your holes and you start it, and you're following that line. This is exactly what it's like. You're following that line, and it's a bendy line, whatever the shape is, and you go a little bit too far to the right, and then you come in a bit more, and you're just swerving all over the place trying to keep to the line, and then you get that little sweet spot where you just following that line perfectly, and then there's a lapse in concentration, and you're off again, and you just kind of wobble round vaguely, don't you? It's almost like you're driving a car and you're bouncing off the curb on either side of the road.
Yeah.
And it looks awful because you're comparing it to that printed line. Yeah.
But the second that pattern comes off,
as soon as you peel it off and you see that finished thing, you just look at it and go, I know exactly what that is meant to be. It's a portrait of whatever, whoever, whatever it is. And because you haven't got that comparison. And I think that, I think that stretches into the comments, Chris. I think that stretches into our own kind of self-confidence, and I could do that, or I could never do that. On both sides.
That's the whole. If I had those tools, I could do that too, kind of mentality.
Yeah, totally. But also, I think, and it has done with me before. Kind of influenced what I've thought. I'd really like to do that, and what I've ended up doing. Sometimes it's a push to go and do something, and sometimes it's I might not be able to do that, because you're seeing the in-betweens. And I think that has a kind of an impact on how we pick and choose our projects and ideas as well. It's a bit of a weird form of inspiration, because I think it works in both ways.
And taking a left-hand turn and finishing out the questions that we had today, because we had several of them, and many I didn't get to today, and I apologize. But I'll start out with a question from Andy Pugh, and then I'm gonna turn it over to Richard Martin, who kind of relates to this. Andy says, how many people don't try certain types of making due to the cost of entry? And then Richard says, I've thought about getting a lathe. And I know, Richard, you had some interaction with this post, so you might have something to say. He says, I've thought about getting a lathe, but all the extras are very expensive. Chucks aren't cheap. Sharpening systems aren't either. And those easy wood tools are, while looking very sexy, are pretty pricey as well. I'm always checking eBay for possible bargains, but secondhand lathes seem to be about as much as the brand new ones too. So when it comes to project funding, and we're talking about, I think basically now, we're not talking about the actual materials you're going to make the tool with, the project with. We're talking about the cost of the tools in order to do the project. Richard, I know you had some thoughts for Richard Martin on that. So, if you want to share them, please do.
Yeah, no, and forgive me, turners of the world, because you'll probably want to turn your back on me. I've got this sort of it's not a derogatory thing, but having been around turners, I've been a member of a couple of turning clubs. I've been to quite a few kind of turning club meetings and floated around turners for a little while. And I don't consider myself a turner. I've got a lathe and I spin things occasionally. But I get the impression that purely from the experiences I've had, and they're not through everyone, that it is a very kind of, no, well, if you haven't got this, you can't do that kind of an environment. You know, in order to turn a bowl properly, you've got to have a scroll chuck, and it's got to have those. I kind of, you'll know what they're called, Jamie. The plates with the rubber buttons that you can reverse the bowl and grip it by the rim.
Jaws.
Cold jaws. You've got to have cold jaws to turn a bowl bottom properly, and you know, and somebody coming into that is thinking, God, I've got to get a lathe. I've got to spend £100 on a scroll chuck because otherwise I can't turn bowls. And then I've got to get these different plates, and then I've got and then the tools are £100 each, and it's just like, it's almost like everyone's trying to keep up with the Joneses, and then you get this self-perpetuating kind of anticlimactic sort of deterrent for new people.
Yeah, well, and a perfect example would be somebody who doesn't know the first thing about turning.
Totally.
And then they look at what the cost of the lathe is, what the tools are going to cost, what the sharpening system is going to cost, and they're going, I mean, I want to learn how to do this, but damn. That's going to cost a lot of money to learn how to do this because I can't do it unless I can do it. You know,
after Makers Central, when Chloe, Kat's youngest, decided she wanted to start turning, her dad found her a lathe on eBay. He was looking around for a while, and it came with like a few tools. I think she's got 4 or 5 tools. 4, I think, because I sharpened her for him the other week. There's a picture on Instagram.
Good way to start.
So that was I think a gift for her because she wanted to get into it, and I can't remember exactly how much she got. And she got it was an old record power lathe, but it's got quite a long. I think it's got like a 36-inch bed. It's not a particularly high one, but it's got a long. She can do long spindles on it.
Right, between centers.
Yeah. Then about 2 weeks afterwards, he found another one on eBay for £25. And he bought that as well, just for parts, because he could. So there are cheap lathes on eBay that come up. Tools, yeah, I mean, brand new tools are expensive, but turning tools last forever, like literally forever. They'll outlast probably my great-great-great-grandkids. You know, there's a lot of turners out there using tools that are like 1 million years old. They used to use as spears for stabbing dinosaurs. They're literally that old. Yeah. So don't go into... And sorry to all the retailers, but my own opinion is don't go into the shops and buy £90 new turning tools, whether it's a roughing gouge or a carbide tip. Don't do that. That's a waste of money. Get down the car boot sales and have a nose around. Get on the eBays and the free cycles and the Facebook marketplaces, because there's people out there with these things in their shed. They don't even know what they are because they were family members and they haven't been used for years, and they're worthless because they're rusty. Yeah. But if you keep your ear to the ground, you can get into there cheap. One of the comments I made to him was, and I know I'm getting on my soapbox. I do apologize, people, but you know, scroll chucks are from the metalworking. They came into woodworking from the metal industry. Before that, people used jam chucks. They used bits of wood with a bit of newspaper sandwiched in to glue on a faceplate to turn a bowl. And these things are still applicable and they're still there. But because it's kind of cool to have these fancy scroll chucks, I think it's that self-perpetuating thing again. I bought a scroll chuck because I thought you needed one because that's what I saw everyone use it. But you don't. It's like, get a block of wood.
Use the faceplate and a hot glue gun.
Yeah,
hot glue gun. Exactly.
You can turn a bowl with that quite easily.
Jamie, I was going to say, you're the turner amongst us today. I mean, what do you think? I mean, because you
don't need a chuck at all. Do you know, Mike Walter's got a great video series of you turning without a chuck.
Really?
Yeah. So go and watch Mike Walt's channel. He's got a great series even for beginner turners. Full stop. Great series he's got.
But Jamie, you didn't make your investment into your lathe tools. And because I'm going to assume, and correct me if I'm wrong, that you didn't start out with a high-end lathe to begin
Nope.
learning your craft? I mean,
No. I started off with a small MIDI lathe from Axminster. And the tools I started off was a set of 3 tools. They were £60 when I bought them, but they've actually recently gone up to £80 for a set of 3 from a guy called Glenn Teagle. I can't remember. It's UK. I think it's UK Wood Carbides and Cutters, I think is the website. I did post it on our website on our Facebook page earlier on today. And to get a set of 3 replacement cutters is only £15. So,
gotcha.
I mean, for less than £100, you can get a set of 3 replacement cutters and the set of tools that comes with a cutter in them as well for less than £100.
I guess the point is here is project funding. At least on this topic that we're currently talking about, when it comes to whether you want to spend the money or not, depends on your desire. If you really want to become a lathe turner or I don't care, whatever whether it's flat work with a table saw, a bandsaw, whatever the case may be, you have to understand there's a cost that comes with it. This is not a cheap hobby. No. It can be a cheap business, but it's not a cheap hobby. There are things that you need to buy in order to do certain things, and they don't always have to be. I get back to the cramp statement. It's like if there's a will, there is a way, but there is a how do you say there's a cap to that. There's a point to where you just can't do something without this, and you have to recognize that. Now, whether you want to spend the money or not is a different story. Now, it's like, do I want to make this box out of Coca-Cola, or would I be better off making it out of pine, taking the time to stain it, make it look pretty, make it look good, or do I want to wait and save up to buy the Coca-Cola? It's like, that's a decision you have to make. It's not a decision that we can make for you. And so there are no answers to this. This all comes down to your pocketbook.
There's another little thing. I know we're pushing for time, Chris, and you're going to be cracking the whip in a little while, but you bring up the Coca-Cola. This is another thing that I've noticed. And it's something that stung me at the start, actually. When you see, I can remember listening to Matt's Basement Workshop, the podcast, and watching. Do you remember? There's a retailer in the States. I can't remember whether it's Woodcraft or they're in Des Moines, Iowa.
It's Woodcraft.
So they used to do a series of, they were like video podcasts. You could only get them through iTunes at the time. This is going back about 2006 or 7.
Oh, wait a minute, that may be Rockler. Okay, whatever. Doesn't matter.
Wherever it was, that I remember distinctly, it was in Des Moines, Iowa, where this group was. And I watched a whole series on turning pens and a whole series on tuning bandsaws and all that sort of stuff. And you're watching these people. There's huge workshops. There's huge tools at their disposal, because obviously there's a store. They've literally got their stuff that they're getting rid of to people. But then you start getting into the YouTube and discovering that, and you've seen people. Oh, I'm edging this with Coca-Cola scraps that I've got lying around, and I've got some really nice exotic woods scraps that I've got kicking around. I didn't go out and buy them just to have as scraps. They literally were left over, but these things have been left over for years. Right. So don't necessarily think that you have to have all these exotic things. You might have that one visit, that one treat where you get a bowl blank out of Purple Heart, but you don't make a full bowl out of it. You keep the bits, and you might cut a spindle blank off the side and keep it for something, and then you can make small things out of the exotic. They don't have to be huge furniture pieces out of exotic wood. You can get small things. And actually, wood turning places are a really good source of not necessarily cheap, but not huge quantities of exotic woods. Do you see what I mean? You can get a small amount of something.
I think project funding has a lot to do with the use that you make out of the scraps you have. Because let's be honest, if you've got scraps of Coca-Cola, if you've got scraps of Purple Heart, those aren't things that you are tending to throw away. You're going to go, I'm going to hang on to that because I know the value of this, and there might be something I can do. And you know what? A lot of that gets done with mosaics. A lot of people do some really cool mosaics. And I don't know if you're into that or not, but I mean, just little bits that add color to whatever you're trying to do. Anyway, we got to wrap this up, guys. I mean, like Richard, as you said, I'm not getting the evil eye that Joe used to get with us, but it is time to wrap this thing up. But we have to, unfortunately, endure Jamie's song. So let's, Jamie, if you're
hang on, that's already done.
If you're prepared, let's go.
You would have 2 songs from me, Chris, today. You ain't
I know, and that's. Oh, God.
I know you like it and all that lot, but ain't happening.
Go for it.
Right. So I'm just going to go to my shout out, which today is going to be Mike Murray from Mine and Mike's Woodshop. And hitting that scroll so hard lately and been putting out the live shows. He's a great friend of the community and he's a good guy in general. So yeah, go and show him some love. Mike and Mike's Woodshop.
Mike is a fantastic individual. I could go on about what Mike has given me, and purely out of the goodness of his heart, I can tell you, he has given me. But
you can get cream for that, though, right?
Well, I don't know about that, but
ointment.
Sorry.
Anyway, my shout out goes to, and I'm sorry because I hate for us each week to pat each other on the back because it just makes it sound kind of fakery. But I couldn't help but give Jamie Page a shout out this week. If you are a member of the We Like to Make Stuff group, you have to look at the video that Jamie posted on that group. It's a minute-long video of Carl Jacobson and Pat Lapp. When they did, and Jamie took their videos. I'm not going to spoil it. If I will, I tell you what, I'll put the link to the video in the comments. And if you want to go check it, and if you remember that group, you can watch it. If you're not, then I'm sorry, but it's definitely worth watching because Carl and Pat actually paired up to make a banjo, and they did a little musical thing that Jamie just totally took the audio out of and put something else into it. It's hilarious. So anyway, Jamie, my hat's off to you. That was funny as hell. I must have watched that like 5 times. I mean, I'm not kidding you.
Just gets funnier and funnier.
Oh my God. All right, Richard, what's up with you?
You can't unsee that though. I'll warn you now.
Yeah.
So I've kind of got 2 shout outs this week. But my main shout out is something that's just popped into my head that I must make reference to. But first of all, my normal kind of weekly shout out this week goes to our good friend, the Inquisitor himself, to Andy Pugh, because it popped up in my feed this evening. I haven't watched it yet, but if you're not aware, Andy runs a channel, Tales from the Tinkerage, and he kind of puts out some fairly frequent-ish vlog style videos where he talks about this, that, and the other. And Andy's a really nice guy. He's a really well-rounded guy. He's got a lot of good things to say. So when he talks, I would advise you listen, as opposed to me when I talk. Just that's time to go to sleep, as you well know. So that's my shout out for this week, goes to Andy. But also we need to send a little bit of love and get well and good wishes to our good friend Dave North, Dave the Wood Barber. Dave had some I'm not going to go into details. If you know, you know. If you don't, he hasn't been hiding it, but it's not my business to I'm not the news. But we're just sending Dave some love and hope that he gets through this and gets well and all the rest of it. So from the 3 of us and anyone that knows him, I'm sure.
Absolutely.
Dave,
and as well,
yeah.
And as well as Dave, seriously, my friend, I hope you get through this okay. As well as Dave, Izzy Swan, who just came off major back surgery. So
yes,
Izzy, we love you, and I hope you're up and about very soon. And Dave, we love you. So just
man,
I just want you to know that. So, I mean, if we have to give a shout out this week, then Dave, you've got it.
Yep.
Christy, I met Dave first in person when we were on the road trip up in Alnwick, and he is a super nice guy as well. Despite what Chris would have you believe, because you know,
I ignore
snub him at every opportunity.
Chris just ignores him.
It's funny because you know what? I love the guy more than I've been accused of ignoring him than I ever did. No, anyway, sorry.
Awesome.
Wrap it up, Richard.
I think that kind of wraps the show up. You'll be glad to know. So if you are still listening to us, then why? If you're not, we'll say what we like about you. I'm not sure if we're doing a free. We're not on Instagram, but we are on Patreon. No, we're not. It might be the other way around after party, but it's free. So we'll find out later. I don't honestly know. But apart from that, if we are, we're not. And if you don't hear one, then we didn't. So until next week, when we're talking about something, hopefully a little bit make a little bit more sense. You all take care.
Oh, I doubt it, but okay. Have a great week, everybody.
See you later, everybody.